Hello, Pete.
Hi, Kat.
Well, you came with far more energy than I did then.
Hey, of course I did. You know me.
Take for today. You can have the best platform, the best consultants, and the best plan. But if your leadership is flaky and your culture is toxic, you've basically just upgraded your tech and your failure rate. Fair call?
Yeah, fair call. I think there's the old saying, which is you can buy technology, but you can't buy transformation. So, yeah, I think when we talk about it, and maybe some other podcasts we spoke about, this the idea of the concept of the theater of leadership versus actual leadership, and I think that resonates a lot with me, which is there's talking about it, but there's actually doing it. And what is doing leadership? And when we think about culture and the impact, I think for me, when you go into organizations, culture is not something you see, it's something you feel. It's like intrinsically sitting behind the walls, and you see it in the people and you feel it in the conversation. So, yeah.
And leadership is so much more than just good communication. It's around having the right alignment, being visible, being part of the change, not just
being
demanding
real.
the change.
Like there's an empathy part. There's showing vulnerability.
Being human, you mean?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Like actually be human?
Yeah, correct. Forget this tech stuff. There's actually this human part. You've actually, for people to believe and actually go, hey, that makes sense, and I'm going to go in that direction. They've got to have belief, and that's going to start with trust. And you're only going to get trust by actually showing people that you are part. Like we've all got things going on in our lives, and we don't always appreciate that people come to work sometimes just to get away from some of those things. But we've all got stuff going on that holds us back.
And what I've seen when you're getting mixed messages from leadership, it very quickly derails trust and takes away all the momentum.
Yeah, well, it's not just mixed messages, but if you see leadership teams that aren't aligned, like that wedge is like by the time that's like a cavern at the bottom of the organization. When they see that crack, it's over.
And to your point, if you can't explain the why are we changing? If you can't explain that using plain English and you're just repeating the same
bingo
catchphrases and the same quotes and the same buzzwords that someone's written for everyone on the leadership team, people see straight through that.
They'll see that it's not you talking. Like they know who you are. They've seen you interact. If you come into those situations and you're using this vernacular instead of words that doesn't resonate, and the people feel it really immediately and go, that's not the Cat I know. But like you and I, our marketing team, we get on stage.
We have no polish.
No, we have no polish, and they're not sure how to control us. But the energy we bring when we do that is completely different, where it's just one of us.
I love the phrase, culture is not what's on the wall, it's what happens in the hall.
Yeah, look, it's definitely one of those things you can go into a meeting room with a customer and you can almost pick up the type of culture that's happening within an organization. You'll feel the level of trust based on the end. There's the whole hippo thing, the highest paid person in the room, that whole, was everyone turn to that person when they start talking.
I haven't heard that one.
Yeah, have you?
I've heard the Nina, no influence, no authority.
Oh, that's new. I haven't heard that one. There you go. So we're learning.
I'll take your hippo and I'll trade you a Nina.
Yeah, cool. But, that whole idea, like I can see teams when the one person starts talking, everyone almost steps back. Versus I've sat in this room and this one senior leader, and she was just amazing. And she goes, no, it's let the team talk. Like my role is to help them and to encourage them. And I think that's what leadership is all about.
And I think if you have leadership and culture that punishes people for speaking up, then you're actually teaching the wrong behaviors, because
there's your culture. You just defined it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like so the lack of complaints is not because there's no problems. It's because people have stopped complaining because they've realized that doing so doesn't get them an outcome.
Yeah, not so just, but that also, but I see, and I have this conversation often, which is around, people go, oh, but there's no point to saying something. Well, as soon as you say that, it's over.
Yeah.
All right. If you're not willing to have a conversation, but conversations have to be done in a safe place. You have to be able to have, and look, there is a time for vetting, but there's a time to be constructive. Like we can't just lay out problems. We've got to lay out, well, what are the things we can do differently? But you've got to create space and opportunity for those, for that to be a reality and for those things to be demonstrated that you're actually going to make the change. Or if you're not going to make the change, talk about why not.
And I think it's also a matter of rewarding great ideas, but also the ideas that maybe didn't work out, but you want to reward the fact that people were thinking differently, that they were coming to the table with a solution, not a problem.
Yeah, I used to sit in a number of, there was a leader I used to work with, and I won't name them, but we'd be in these conversations and a group of people, and he would see people that weren't contributing. And he had this really gentle way of encouraging them to enter the conversation and make them feel safe and make them that their ideas were safe as well. And so that they could put them out. And so we'd never go, oh, that's a bad idea. We'd go, oh, actually interesting. We've not thought about that. Let's double click that or let's explore it. Because sometimes you just need to be able to talk it out. And I think this way of allowing people into the conversation and I think that's what a great leader does is when they see a room and they see people are there, but they're not entering the conversation. That doesn't mean they don't have an idea. They just may not have the voice. And our role is to actually open that up and create the space for them to have that voice, because that might be the secret part that comes out.
There's a nuance to doing that right and wrong.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Because I've seen leaders who have in their mind thought, I want to get a diverse opinion at the table. I've got to ask a female.
Yeah.
And as someone who is sometimes the only female in the room, it feels like you're being targeted because it's like, Kat, what do you think? Kat, what do you think? Yeah. Great leaders know how to draw out a team and a diverse group of opinions. You can't
marginalize
without pointing at people and saying, hey, what do you think?
What's your opinion? That's not what it's about. It's about, generally in a room, there will be a couple of people. It's in creating the space for those people to allow their voice to enter the conversation in a way that is respectful. And then if someone does try to shut it down, you've got to then be willing to, you're going to demonstrate your behavior really, really quickly if you don't step into that conversation.
And then also having awareness of like personality traits, like whether someone's an introvert or an extrovert, or a massive change in culturally how people speak up. Yeah. And when I led a whole bunch of teams that were we called it growth markets, but across Asia Pacific, Latin America, Central East Europe, Middle East Africa, pretty much everything except America. So a range of cultures. You just had to be aware that culturally some people will never share an opinion in a room full of people, but they will send you an email after the meeting to share their opinion if you create a safe space for them to do so.
So look, I think those nuances are important to understand. It's like when we present, how I present in Australia and New Zealand, it has to be different when I go to
Australia. Oh, it's so different.
All right. But knowing that I'm not changing who I am.
Well, the jokes are different.
Yeah, the jokes are different. But you're not changing the core of who you are.
Correct.
All right. What you are doing is being aware of that environment and having that understanding. I think you'll get more respect for that.
The message is the same, but the way that you deliver it is a variation.
It's very different.
Yeah.
And I think, and then again, what's the right space? What's the way that they provide the group will provide you feedback? I think that knowing that's again becomes really important.
Yeah. Although I will say you can't communicate your way out of bad culture. So if you've thought about the message and how you're going to deliver it, if you haven't created a culture where people are willing to listen, you've probably failed already.
Yeah, it's the age-old thing, 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in the right proportions. But I think there's a demonstration part. Culture is about what they see. All right. And so, there's again another saying, which is that the behavior you walk past is the behavior you accept. Well, again, in a meeting, if we allow those things to happen and we don't step up, often you and I are having this conversation about, have we got the right group of people in front of our customers? Have we got the customer at the front of our mind? And are we representing the right part of the brand and having the diversity, in all forms? All right. You and I are very passionate about that. And we fight that often in meetings, and sometimes we're the only voice bringing it to the table, but we know it's strong behind the brand. It's strong behind what we believe. And so I think we show that in spades when we're in those conversations.
We talk a lot about change theater versus change leadership. And, for me, change theater is like launching a wellness program at 6 p.m. on a Zoom call.
Yeah, there's wellness for you.
Change leadership is when you see your executives rolling up their sleeves and they're in the trenches with the teams. And I think your ability to drive change for an organization or to get people to consider new ways of working is contingent on whether you're really showing up.
Absolutely. I think this idea of showing up, walk in their shoes, but your ability to get down and have that conversation. I've seen some great leaders, their ability to traverse the very senior people, but walk past them in the street and they would still say hello. And I've seen other leaders who basically, I would have met them a dozen times and they almost ignore you. I think it's when you feel and see that's the stuff that makes a material difference in my mind. And that, so again, that idea of theater versus that, hey, actually that ability to have a conversation, that willingness to listen, because you know that couple of moments of you asking a simple question of someone might be the thing that unlocks that person for the day. Yeah.
I've worked for quite a few big personality CEOs, and a couple of them very much fell into that category.
Yeah.
Like when they were out in the geos, they'd arrive 5 minutes before they were on stage. They'd get ushered through the back entrance. They'd get up on stage, deliver their presentation, shake a hand of a customer in the front row, and be ushered out the back.
Yeah.
Never to share a word with an employee.
Yeah.
And people see that. They feel that. And so when that same leader turns around and wants to completely pivot the organization because the market has shifted, their ability to enact that kind of change is weakened. Whereas I've also worked with big personality CEOs who you go to their big event in Vegas or San Fran or wherever it is, and they're walking amongst our customers, allowing them to take selfies, and they are shaking hands. Yeah, there's a security guard a couple of meters away. Like, they're senior people. They need a little bit of safety. But they're amongst the people, and they're shaking hands with customers. They're having a chat with employees. They're genuinely interested in their people. And that kind of leadership, people would move mountains to help them succeed.
I think you just touched on that genuine leadership, that they see that genuine nature of an individual. And I think for me, that's a big part of the difference in people, when they realize that you're being genuine about it. You're not just doing it because someone said as a leader, you need to go and talk to your people. People will see through that. All right. And not everyone has that. Okay. But there are different ways that people can turn up into those conversations. A lot of people think I'm a very extroverted person. Maybe in the workplace that seems like the reality, but at home it's not who I am. All right. But I've become comfortable in sort of putting myself in these uncomfortable situations and having the confidence to have these conversations, because you just never know what's going on for somebody at that point in time. And so, yeah. And I think our CEO says, trust is earned in droplets and lost in buckets. I think it's so true.
So we've talked a little bit about what good looks like around using plain speak, showing up, being one of the people, really building that authentic leadership so that you can help enable change. I think one of the other things that is a sign that your leadership is setting the organization up for success is when you celebrate quick wins and the people behind them. And I love that Bill McDermott announced to our whole organization at the start of this year that there is no cake budget. Like, for me, that is a clear signal to his employees that we will not put a price on celebrating the success of our customers. And I would love more organizations to recognize, and it's not just celebrating the wins, right? Sometimes you celebrate the attempts, because an attempt with a small failure can lead to innovation that drives a greater success.
Yeah, look, I think we talk about celebrating the failures, but I don't see a lot of people do that, honestly, but particularly well, to be fair. But I think the idea of being able to get up and have an open conversation, go, hey, look, we attempted this, and this didn't go the way we thought, and so we've had to pivot our direction. That's a real vulnerability for a lot of organizations, because people are going, how are we going to motivate and move and get everyone behind it? But I think it's not saying you have to have this negative story. You have to look at what was the learning out of that, and what are we going to do differently so we don't make the same mistake. And I think that's one of the great things I see in this organization, is that when we look at customers and we see things that haven't worked, we marshal behind that to go, how are we, and we will draw on the enterprise and the capability to make a difference. And then we quickly look at what are we going to do differently to ensure that doesn't happen again.
Do you feel like maybe we don't make enough time across the sector? Maybe we don't make enough time to dissect what we did wrong?
I think yes, but I think sometimes we only see the negative side of it. We don't see how that is going to materially make a difference. And it takes energy and effort. And I think that's a big thing. When we're already tired and we're a bit drained, the energy to go back and sort of unearth and go and do that in a safe way.
It's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, because we're going to ask challenging and difficult questions, not to put anybody on the spot. And I think that's where a lot of people fear.
Or to pass blame.
You pass blame. So this is not about blame. When you put the customer at the center and you go, actually, If that was to have been successful, what would it need to have been true to make that a reality? Then I think we get a different conversation. And again, it comes down to the leader in the room, and a leader can come from anywhere. It doesn't have to be the most senior person. All right. A leadership can come from anywhere, which is about how do you create that safe space. And there's some great people I see that here in this organization do that on a regular basis.
Would it be fair to say, and this is my inner nerd coming out again, because she's
Look
never
out.
far away.
She's never far away.
If culture's the operating system, is great leadership the version update that allows you to take advantage of unlock the value of the platform itself?
That's an interesting way to think about that, Kat. So maybe it's right, actually. Like if culture is the operating system, then the elements of leadership that you inject to improve that or upgrade it, not a bad analogy. I like it.
Too nerdy for you?
No, I like it, actually. We might run with that. We'll see how we go. Well, actually, to be fair, but we've seen that in our own organization here. Like, not that I've been here for multiple CEOs, but we've seen different CEOs here for different parts of our journey. And sometimes you need different types of leadership to take you to the next level and to embrace what's ahead of you and to knock down the challenges that you face as an organization.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, we are a platform company, and a lot of what we do centers around having an incredible platform that we help our customers unlock value from. I feel like the platform is only ever as powerful as people's willingness to adopt it.
Yeah. Look, I'm often in conversations with teams when I look at it and go, why are we not seeing the value? Where has it gone away? And in those conversations, I look at it and go, largely it's not about the tech. It's largely about the other elements around it that we didn't put enough. Were we clear about the vision? Were we clear about success? Did we create the moments that matter? Did we build momentum into the change? And were we able to sustain it beyond the project? Because guess what happens at the end of the project? All the funding, all the team, and everything stands away. We didn't design the next phase and wave and recognize the opportunity to continue to innovate and continue to challenge our organization once we built that change capability.
At the end of the day, transformation isn't a task list. It
Well,
feels
if it was, we just asked ChatGPT and it'd give us the tasks.
It feels like it's a trust exercise.
I think behind all of it, absolutely, it has to be based on trust. People have got to have belief. They got to feel that the change is going to make a positive difference to what they're doing.
Closing thoughts, Pete.
Closing thoughts. So, if we touch about a culture being the operating system, like you can buy great technology, but you can't buy the transformation. You can't buy the leadership. They're the things that are sometimes invisible, but they're the things that are going to drive the change, and that ability to be able to have that clarity and succinctness to talk about it simply across the organization about what is success going to look like, have that ability to transfer or, go through the layers of the organization and break through the permafrost, as we used to call it, middle management. All right. And get down to everybody so they can see not just the impact to the organization, but the impact for them. I think when you get that right and you can celebrate those moments and respect when you don't get things right, and everybody feels like their voice has been listened, you can move mountains at that point.
Yeah, I think for me, it's that if your culture can't absorb change, the change is never going to stick. And so really think clearly about how leadership is rolling up their sleeves and bringing not just the right attitude, but bringing a sense of humility, bringing their real selves to the table so that you not just empower, but inspire people.
And leadership's not a task. It doesn't start one day and finish the next.
Wouldn't that make life easier?
Well, it'd make it a lot easier, but that's just not reality. Like you got to turn up, and it's in those moments when it's the most difficult, and I still remember a story in my younger days. Again, I'll protect the organization.
Just yesterday.
Yeah, correct. I was definitely younger yesterday. But we had a big change announcement, but the CEO was down at the coffee shop buying his sandwich, putting himself in front of the people when we just made this big disruptive announcement to the organization. And it was a real demonstration of difference from what I'd seen in prior leadership, to actually be around the people and be knowing that he'd announced this change. And so for him, it was about putting himself out there and allowing the conversations to happen.
I still remember, we talk about moments that matter. I remember a very pivotal moment in my career where there was some significant employee redundancies being announced. And the two leaders making the announcements got on a helicopter to fly to the office to make that announcement.
Yeah. What does that say about it?
What does that say about them? On that note,
This has been great. Good to see you again,
see you next
Kat.
time.